Hello, hello. Yesterday was the fight between Justin Gaethje and Ilia Topuria. I did make. I'm in China. Yesterday I was in China while the fight was happening, so unfortunately I missed the fight lives. But when I woke up, Sean O'Malley had already won his fight, and the two fighters, the co-main events. Alex Pereira versus our French fighter, and Justin Gaethje versus Ilia Topuria. Basically, I didn't watch. I haven't been keeping up with the UFC in a long time, but the day before the fight, I did see some footage, and what's really funny is I'm kind of blanking out on our French fighter. But basically I had the French fighter go to beat Pereira, and I had Justin Gaethje beating Ilia Topuria. Now, I have to admit, so when it comes to Gaethje versus Ilia Topuria, at first I thought Ilia Topuria was going to win, but and I actually thought that the U.S. chose the wrong fighter. Like, Gaethje is a really good fighter, but the way he fights is pretty high risk at times. He's pretty aggressive, but he can. That's what happened. Like, Ilia beat Max Holloway. Max Holloway beat Gaethje with a sweet KO. So that definitely factored in my first instincts on why Ilia Topuria would have be favored. But when I kind of saw like their overall attitude towards each other, that was a really big factor, because fighter first. We gotta check our French fighter's name. Gane. So Gane. So try to clarify my thoughts. The reason why I'm filming this is I need to improve my recollection and my ability to. I've had a really hard time in SI for socionics, and I'm trying to improve. So basically, Gane versus Pereira. First thing is, Pereira is a fighter for me that he stalks forward. He's kind of his stance is a bit stands very upright. He likes to move forward and put pressure on his opponents and back them against the wall. He does not prefer fighting backwards. So if you compare it like Israel Adesanya prefers to attack, feint, attack, circle away from the opponents and get back to the circle. He likes to get back to the center of the octagon where he has the most space to maneuver. Pereira does not really fight that way. I think Pereira has, he likes to do the Muay Thai kind of, I think it's called an elephant walk, where he raises his knee and kind of moves, stalks his prey forward, and he tries to corner his opponents. And he has really strong hooks and uppercuts, and he has very, very clean kicks. So I think Pereira is very comfortable if you're going to stand in front of him, and if you're going to stand in front of him and fight kind of like, he likes to move linearly, but his attacks come in kind of from an angular or a curve. There's linear attacks and then there's curved attacks. And Izzy is someone who likes to circle, so he likes to circle and curve. So his movements around the octagon are very like a snake-like curving, moving, feint, trying to be a very tricky fighter. I think of Pereira as more of he moves linear, but he likes really tight hooks, so he attacks curved attacks, and his kicks are also coming in, as far as I recall, in my memory database, he's also kicking very curved. He has really nice low kicks, and if you get in an exchange where it's like, hey, let's both stand in front of each other, and I'm doing low kicks and you're doing low kicks, he has a lot of confidence in his technique to handle checking kicks, but also his ability to trade. He's not a very defensive minded fighter, so his arms are not always up. His arms feel more ready and here lower. The reason is I think he wants to generate more power from his kinetic chain, and we all know that Pereira has excellent knockout power, but I think he lacks a little bit in the head movement and in the footwork. So his offensive tools, like he's strong, curving attacks, hooks, uppercuts. He's got strong low kicks, and he's got great defensive tools. I believe, like the way he parries, uses hands, uses his feet. The block is pretty good, but in general, he's so upright, and he can conserve more energy this way. And I think it helps him absorb sort of damage, but it's not great at avoiding damage. Now, Ciryl Gane, what made me believe that Ciryl Gane was going to have the advantage and ended up choosing him is that he moves very beautifully and he has great speed. So he has great footwork. And as John Jones took out Ciryl Gane, John Jones used I believe John Jones has very unorthodox, creative grappling skills, very creative wrestling skills. And Ciryl Gane just not on the same level, grappling wise. So the grappling advantage goes so clearly to Jones that when Jones shoots for the double leg, shoots for the takedown, he basically can mitigate all of Ciryl Gane's beautiful movement and striking. Now, Alex Pereira, to my knowledge, almost only has defensive grappling. So Ciryl Gane doesn't want to grapple, Pereira doesn't want to grapple. So the grappling component kind of gets out, right? So if Alex Pereira had as good as grappling as his striking, then he could mitigate Ciryl Gane the same way as John Jones mitigated Ciryl Gane. But Gane, so I think Gane went into the fight with Alex feeling very comfortable knowing this guy's not going to grapple me. So we're going to be able to fight a standing game. And so Alex Pereira's game is I'm going to be standing forward, I'm going to try to corner you. I'm moving slowly and I'm going for hooks and stuff like that. And Ciryl Gane, I think this beautiful movement is like a much bigger Izzy, in the sense that he's moving, he's grooving, and he can move in, he can move out. He's got good kicks. So the range advantage is, I didn't check who the range advantage had, but I'm pretty sure that Gane had both speed advantage, range advantage, and mobility advantage. And in striking, I think he who controls the range controls the damage. He who controls the distance controls the damage. And I believe that, when you have the range advantage by your body size, right? One is a natural heavyweight, one was a middleweight. The natural. Hello, Mama. So the natural advantage. Mama. Oh, it's too low. So the natural advantage would go to Ciryl Gane because he could actually move in and then move out, and he could circle, and he could basically play with Pereira. He also has the size advantage, which also would come for the strength advantage and the power advantage. I think Pereira did have a kind of a size advantage. Like, he was a big middleweight, but does not count as a big heavyweight. Whereas Ciryl Gane is big heavyweight and a fast heavyweight. So the danger level of a lot of the striking technique and a lot of the threat level that was being presented by Alex Pereira was not as it was just gonna be less. He's just gonna become weaker, right? So it's like his size advantage goes down, his power advantage goes down, and I actually think in the case of Alex Pereira with this fight at heavyweight, I think his style kind of works a lot because he's big for his division. So he can play the very straight up style, and you hit me and I go short hooks because he's bigger, so he doesn't have like the range inferiority problem. He was slower. I believe he was slower for his division, so he was slow for middleweight, but he was tanky. He could take the damage, and so he built a stance. That pretty much works. Around this fact that people's punches could only do very little damage to you, and so you could just bullet them forward, trade, and corner them. And he did it. Alex Pereira has a lot of very short, low telegraph strikes, which I believe really works well when the fighter is willing to fight at your range. Like if we're fighting at a range where we're kind of static, then it becomes like, okay, whoever is more readable would be easier to counter and dodge. And I think Alex Pereira had a very strong skill of not being that readable. So he would stand up very still, then he would fire off. He would look like he's not kicking. He would do a front kick into very powerful front kicks. I do think Gane did it also. I think psychological, like the psychology of the fighters is really, really important. When I looked at Cyril Gane was really focusing on, okay, this is my division. He's not fought at heavyweight before, and he's confident. He's already fought John Jones, so he knows that everyone is beatable, and he's very confident in his own skills, and he's trying to stay very objective. Okay, who's faster? I'm faster. Okay, who's bigger? I'm bigger. How do I use my objective advantages how do I use those to my advantage? And they also brought in like people who had actually beaten Alex Pereira. So they really focused on demythicizing Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is like, like Alex Pereira with all the theatrics. I think it really can get to people. Say, hey, is this guy beatable? Is he like? It kind of makes him a little superhuman. So some of Alex Pereira's moves kind of even call out like the superhuman side of him, whereas Cyril Gane really focused on, I need to humanize my opponent. So I think psychologically Alex Pereira kind of focused on, I'm just going to be respectful, but I'm going to present scary, and I'm just going to focus that I'm willing to take on challenges and take risks, and I'm going to try to be the legendary beat 3 belts. I think the problem with the mentality is it's a little bit more focused on a subjective ideal. It's like focused on, like instead of focusing on his opponent, Gane, and focusing specifically on what are my opponent's advantages over me. What advantages does he have over me? I saw a common theme between Pereira and Ilya is instead of talking about what they saw in their opponent as objective weaknesses, they are focusing on these grand visions of building a legacy, of being the legendary, undefeated. They kind of were, the way they were talking was they were trying to use kind of law of attraction, speak it into existence, kind of jargon to really make them, to take away their fear. I actually think that they kind of both fighters went into the fight with not enough fear, and the training not enough fear. Whereas I believe that Gane, and specifically Gaethje was I think Gaethje was very afraid of Ilya. He talked about how he was I'm afraid of him. I believe that he's going to beat me every day. So every day I train as if he's going to beat me. So he came in, the difference, now we're going to Ilya, is that Ilya came into the fight thinking that I'm invincible, unbeatable, destined, predestination kind of thing. And Pereira, Gaethje presented himself as, you know what, this is going to be the biggest challenge of my life, biggest, toughest, and I'm going to overcome it. And when I think about that, I actually believe that it's very... Ilya and Pereira kind of have a big hype train, and they kind of were buying into their own... The way they presented, at least, was it seemed they were buying into their hype. But I think Justin really focused on... Justin and Gane really focused on what are my own strengths and how do I turn this fight into my own. And I think Gane did a better job of mitigating Pereira's strength and exploiting his weaknesses. But so what happened? It seems to me that both Gaethje and Ilya both fought better than I expected. They both fought amazing. Ilya definitely could have won the fight multiple times. So if we looked at the thing is I think it's Ilya's talked about this is gonna be easy, you're nobody, you weren't supposed to beat me, you couldn't even beat this person, you can't beat this person. He's really looking down on his opponent. I really believe that he was looking down on his opponent. Whereas I believe that I don't feel that Pereira looked down on Gane, but he was a little bit coming in the fight too calm, without enough fear. There was no fear, and this thing is gone. He's beaten so many people. Alex Pereira's beaten so many people. It's not, he has no real reason to be afraid of Gane. But I think that Gane was not particularly afraid of Pereira. I think he's very happy to be able to take this fight. But I think he was very dialed in on what are your strengths, what are your advantages, how am I gonna turn this fight into my fight. He was very strategic. And then Gaethje went into this fight knowing this fight was going to be one hell of a fight, and he this opportunity to represent his country at the White House in front of the president, we know that he had an interim belt before, but for all of us, our fight fans, and we all consider the interim belt not as the most legit belt, right? It's even though you have the interim belt, you feel like you didn't really get the belt. I think that's how the fighters feel, at least. And so I think that if you asked me, Ilya Topuria should have been scared of Gaethje because Ilya had everything to lose in this fight, being undefeated with double champ and almost nothing to gain. If he beat Gaethje, it's not like anyone would really think of Ilya wow, you're much better than you are, because Ilya had beaten Max had beaten Gaethje. So if he beat Gaethje, people would of course, it was kind of expected, whereas Gaethje is an underdog, and Gaethje is a person who's dedicated his whole life to try to become the undisputed UFC champion, and now he's being given the biggest opportunity any UFC fighter has ever had to hit this dream. I mean, as a proud American, he's able to do this for his family, do this for the country. He was representing a country at one of the most iconic and sacred places in the American, the American mythos. The White House is a very important place. So he was the main event headliner on the president's birthday, personally the door, like if he fought and won this fight, Justin Gaethje's future, like his future, his stock would go from here to 100 times higher if he won this fight. Justin Gaethje had everything to win and nothing to lose. Like if he lost this fight, no one would look down at it. Like when I say nothing to lose, it would be pretty embarrassing to lose at the White House, being the American chosen to represent America at the White House event. But I mean, Ilya was an undefeated fighter on a massive tear. So if he lost, I'm pretty sure most Americans, like myself, would be like, damn it, we chose the wrong guy. But hats off to Ilya. We wouldn't think that Gaethje made some big mistake if he lost. We would have thought that Ilya must have made a really big mistake if Gaethje won. And I think that actually, this is the very funny thing is, Ilya was comparing himself to Gaethje and stressing how he's so much better than Gaethje. And yes, there's always shit talk involved in fighters, but sometimes it's not that smart to really believe you're actually better than another fighter in every single dimension. There are clips of him saying that Gaethje doesn't know how to grapple, and Gaethje is a Division I wrestler, right? It's like, the way he kind of despised Gaethje made it sound like he didn't think, he had no respect for Gaethje in his heart, which means he didn't actually believe that Gaethje was better than him in any single way. So that means he believed that the only way Gaethje could win against him is luck. Because if a person is like, if you're better than a person in every single dimension, striking, kicking, endurance, tolerance, and I think that's actually, because Ilya, the way he smiles too, he's a very handsome guy, I believe. And Ilya looks like a model, so no disrespect to him. I hope one day I have a chance to meet them. I'm only talking about them as a fan, not trying to disrespect them. I'm actually trying to focus on improving my own SI, and because as I study sociologics, I'm trying to improve my ability to recall things and just express myself in front of the camera, because I'm very weak at this. So I just I did care about this event. I have some time and I want to share some thoughts. And Ilya, if you look at the interviews of Ilya, his eyes and his face and his smiles was like perfect model, in the sense that he just looked like the kind of super belief. Like he truly believed that he was better than Gaethje in every way. And I think that's what's so interesting about that is, I don't exactly know who Ilya's coaches are, but I was talking to some guys in the Socionics channel. I actually believe that Gaethje does not fight alone. Like Gaethje, Justin Gaethje and his coach Trevor Whitman, they're fighting together. So like when you fight Gaethje, you're fighting Trevor Whitman as well. Like if Gaethje did not have Trevor Whitman with him, he would be a much weaker opponent. And my personal analysis is, I think Gaethje's an ESDP and Trevor Whitman is an INFJ. I'm also an INFJ. So I believe that actually listening to Trevor Whitman, he has very strong NI and very strong TI. And has an extreme dedication to the sport. Like, Trevor Whitman is a person who's extreme dedication to the sport, and so does Justin Gaethje, has extreme dedication to the sport. And so, like, a huge style difference. And this kind of came out, actually, and Joe Rogan asked Ilya about Gaethje, and Ilya said that he thinks that the logic he followed is, he thinks Gaethje can't grapple because he said, if you can grapple and submit your opponents, you would. If you were in a cage with an opponent, you would submit them as fast as possible if you could. So his logic is, he believes that if a person had the ability to submit a person quickly, they would submit them. But if they do not submit them, that means they couldn't submit them. It's actually, I believe it's a logical fallacy. And this is something that did trigger in the fight, because one of the reasons, like there was a situation, I believe, in the second round where Topuria was definitely in a dominant position. He had Gaethje hurt, and he outstruck Gaethje. He really outstruck him, and with the body shots, he got him in a pretty much extremely inferior position. And then he chose to go for arm bars and triangles and submissions, which, in hindsight, basically, that was the point in time where Ilya was at the highest advantage in the fight. And it kind of goes back hauntingly to the Justin Gaethje and the Joe Rogan and Ilya interview, because it means he really believed that. Like, it really, he went for the submission on Gaethje because he really believed Gaethje can't grapple. But actually, Gaethje can grapple enough, even when injured, enough to turn. Like, what happened is that's a very important turn of events. Is he outstruck. So Ilya Topuria was correct in some ways. The way Ilya Topuria views kind of striking and grappling, he's viewing very specific things like he's viewing the way he views striking and grappling is like a good striking is measured like this. Good grappling is measured like this. And he was using a very simplified way of determining a person's grappling and striking ability. So let me see if I can recall something about that. Is, for example, so let's say, cat's biting me. So let's say like Ilya Topuria might look at a person like Gaethje, and he may not account for something like a person's courage, like the way he measured Gaethje in my mind is he's like, this guy's striking, he doesn't strike as well as me. He doesn't grapple as well as me. How many submissions does he have? He wants to objectify him in a very TE way and very, very quantified way. And it's interesting because we do look at Topuria. When you do look at Topuria and Gaethje kind of looks like a brawler. He doesn't look like a technical fighter. It looks like Ilya Topuria looks more handsome, honestly. He strikes more beautiful. Like the way he delivers his combinations look like he's dancing, basically. So I would actually say that Ilya Topuria is onto something. So when Ilya Topuria is looking at who has a better striking, he's like, just look at our video footage. Who looks more smooth? Who's delivering more, who's more wild and who's more controlled, kind of thing. And I just want to throw that out there as I'm ranting. I think Ilya Topuria has more, if I recall correctly, type 1 muscle fibers, which are like faster muscle fibers. And then I think Gaethje has type 2, which they're kind of slow twitch fibers. So Gaethje also fights in a way, in my opinion, sometimes he looks like he's really, really hurt. And honestly, I don't know if he's faking it. I know that Gaethje does get hurt all the time. He did get hurt in the fight. But what's really interesting is, like, if you looked at the two fighters, Ilya tried to fight like he's perfect technique. Always, he tried it, like he has practiced certain techniques in practice, and he wants to do those exact techniques in the fight. Whereas Gaethje, I feel like he practiced a bunch of techniques, but he kind of lets go of those techniques in the fight, and then he lets the fight dictate his technique rather than the technique to dictate the fight. And so when things get a little bit crazy, a little bit chaotic, he's not leaning on like, I need to go look for my playbook. Whereas it looked like Topuria had drilled a lot of certain fighting techniques, and things is, if he didn't drill it, it seemed like he's more in trouble. Like there was a thing is where Gaethje delivered a lot of damages when he put a single collar tie. He had a collar tie and then he did an uppercut. And it looked to me that if we were talking about the punch styles, I actually think that the straight punches, if you're doing straight punches, like the straight punches and combinations, especially in the early rounds, you'd give them to Ilya because Ilya has the more fast twitch muscle fibers. So like when they're engaged, he's delivering volume and he's delivering power. But the disadvantage of that is you run out of endurance, right? Whereas Gaethje has more slow muscle twitch fibers. So his punches may not look as great, but I think actually that some of the very weird ways that Gaethje strikes they're more taking advantage of his own body architecture, his own musculature. Like, for example, we don't see Topuria suddenly like grab the collar tie and go for the uppercut, right? When you go for the uppercut, for the collar tie, that is a grappling move. And then when you go for the uppercut, that's totally mixed martial arts. You're mixing grappling and striking at the same time. And grappling favors slow twitch muscle fibers, in my opinion, where you're really hanging on. Because if it's not about that explosive moment, it's about that it's like control you and drag you and bam. So maybe, as you can see, is that even though Ilya has the better whoa, like he can punch like this, maybe Gaethje is like, well, you can punch better than me like that, but I'm going to put in this collar tie, and now I'm going to uppercut you, and that's not something you drilled for. Now you're in the deep waters, and I think that Topuria was very focused on how he's so much better. He truly is better in the combinations, right? In the early rounds. But he puts so much belief that I'm better than you in this. I just need to touch you and you're out. Whereas Gaethje, this is Gaethje and Gane. Gaethje is a big lightweight. And Topuria is coming up, so it's more of a challenge. So it kind of reminded me a little bit of Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz, where Nate Diaz looks flabby because Nate Diaz has a lot of the type 2 muscle fibers, marathons. They can push into the later rounds. So these guys are not as, their knockout power is not as, their knockout ability is not as good as the type 1 muscle fiber guys, but they have the advantage of being able to take serious damage and retain the ability to be dangerous. And I think what's a good factor with Trevor Whitman and Gaethje is a kind of fighter who, I think he thinks very fast, but I think he actually outsources a lot of his thinking and strategy to his coach. He claims, says that Trevor Whitman is a genius. His mind is built for MMA. And I feel like that's a very dangerous combo, is when you have a committed coach. Like, you have to look at Trevor Whitman, probably watched every video on Ilya many times. Like, that's scary. That should be scary to Ilya. Like, it doesn't really matter how smart Gaethje is, fight IQ, if he has an extremely smart fight IQ coach who's looked at all your footage and has figured out all your patterns and then found out all your weaknesses. And I think that makes Gaethje and Gaethje a very good combo with Whitman, because Whitman is the kind of guy who's, since he's not fighting, Whitman is, because he's not fighting, doesn't feel as, when you're detached and you're not the one getting punched in the face, it's easier to stay more objective, actually. And whereas you're the fighter and you're dealing with media day and you've got to create a persona, it can actually be, it can be a lot to handle. So I do think that the victory is a team effort, and I'm not sure Ilya's, like, the thing is, I don't know who's the main guy in Ilya's corner, but we do see Ilya support his brother in the fight. And the thing is, I think the dynamic is a little bit, I love seeing brothers who are very close to each other, like Ilya and his brother, but I just think the dynamic's a little different. Like, I think that Ilya's brother is not seen by Ilya as the genius who, it's like for Alex, for Gaethje, Justin puts Trevor Whitman above him as a coach. Whereas I think as Topuria gets stronger and stronger, it's kind of similar to Conor McGregor, where the fighter knows more than the coach situation, right? And the older brother knows more than the younger brother situation. So the brother's there to help, but it's not there to really see all the possibilities. And I do think that Justin Gaethje's coach is an NI-Dom, INFJ with a pattern-seeking ability. I want to talk a little bit more. I think Justin Gaethje surprised us all. Also, I want to say, like, I think people give shit to Ilya for quitting on the stool or whatever. As a fight fan, we want to see fighters fight to the best of their ability. Both of the fighters fought beyond the best of their ability. Ilya had certain strategies and psychological preparations that I probably would not encourage, but I think that actually Ilya did a great job fighting, and he underestimated. The thing is, if a fighter doesn't have knockout power, like let's say Gaethje does have knockout power. What I'm saying is, let's say Ilya has more Twitch 1 muscle fibers, so he can have more knockout power. That I think is true. But with Gaethje, you don't need that knockout power to hurt someone. Like, Gaethje has the ability to hurt you, and that's what good technique is. And that's what coaches are there for. Coaches are there to say, okay, they study your opponents, find out your weaknesses and patterns, and they help you find the techniques that you should be training that would exploit your opponent's weaknesses. Justin has shown the ability to be extremely athletic and great fighter. He has, we see him do Rolling Thunder. We see him, like he has the ability to do advanced techniques. Justin has the ability to do advanced techniques. And sometimes he looks like he has no technique, or he looks kind of weak. I actually think it might be a kind of art of war deception strategy where he pretends to be more hurt than he really is hurt to lure opponents to fight his game. Because I see Justin going, oh. Like, I remember when he was fighting, who was it? He was fighting the guy who kicked Tony Ferguson in the head. He was fighting that guy. And, like, even though he looked so hurt and he was making hurt noises, he was totally dangerous the whole time. Like, he was always dangerous. And that's because he came into the fight to fight, and he has advanced technique. Like, no matter how bad his technique looks like, you must know that he's dangerous and he has advanced technique. He just looks like he doesn't have advanced technique. And I think that is an even more advanced technique. It's like you have advanced technique and you look like you don't have advanced technique. You make yourselves look like you're falling down and you're like have no much energy left. And it lures people in. And that's actually something I wanted to mention about Ilya and Gaethje's. Both of these guys don't like moving backwards. And I think actually in Ilya's case, in like the rounds 3 and 4, maybe moving backwards would have been better. And I don't actually know if Ilya has had much training moving backwards, because it seems like Ilya's strategy was, I'm gonna move forward on you, I'm gonna corner you, and I'm gonna chop you down and trade you. I'm just touch you with a few of these, and you're out of there. So true belief in the knockout power, which he truly has, right? But Gaethje has above average chin and toughness, and he has a size advantage, so he can absorb more damage than a normal opponent of Topuria. Like, even though Topuria took out Max, I think Max was actually laying it down on Topuria. Just that Topuria is, Max is like kind of like he's fast, but he's kind of like thin, like small. He's very tall, so he doesn't have the most stocky build. Whereas you see the neck and the lats of Gaethje, you know that he has a much more, like, Max could chop out Gaethje for days with the speed advantage. But the thing is, when both fighters move forward, it's like, so Max is a fighter who fights back, moving backwards all the time. So Max is kind of like counterpuncher, and Max himself has the speed advantage on Gaethje, whereas Gaethje has the size advantage on Max and Ilya. So Ilya was able to trap a fast Max and out combo him because he has pretty sick combos. They both have really good combos, but the thing is, like, Max Holloway has great combos, but he's not, like, his neck and his lats are not stocky. So actually his ability to take damage is not as high as Gaethje, in my opinion. So when he actually so the logic that Ilya applied to Max is, if I trap you on the corner and I touch you up, chances are you're going to go out. It works better when a guy is smaller and they have less neck muscles and less lats, right? So it did work on Max. But Gaethje has the ability to absorb crazy amounts of punishment. And the thing is, I believe Ilya and Gaethje were both going forward. It actually plays to the advantage of Gaethje because Gaethje's... Look, let's put it this way. Ilya was not going to wrestle Gaethje. Like, that was... He emergency wrestled him later. So the thing is, Khabib beat Gaethje with superior Dagestani grappling. So that wasn't going to be a risk, right? Max beat Gaethje by actually being faster and having reach, using reach. He wasn't using power to beat Gaethje. And by the time he knocked out Gaethje, he had already been beating up Gaethje for a while. He was beating up Gaethje for 5 rounds, and Gaethje was kind of out of the tank and kind of out of it already. So the knockout was a surprise, but Gaethje had taken a serious beating leading up to that period of time. But I think he used a speed and range advantage. Now, Ilya's did have a speed advantage on Gaethje, but he didn't have like the crazy range advantage. He's smaller, shorter fighter. And by being the shorter fighter, he has more power, stronger combinations, linear attacks, moving forward, not moving back. He basically gave Justin Gaethje a dogfight. Now, Justin Gaethje doesn't like moving back, but because of the forward pressure, he was forced to move back. So so actually, Ilya was actually able to push him farther back than Justin wanted to, and Justin took a serious beating off of that. But the recovery of type 2 muscle fibers allows there to be hey, we're both at high energy, you push me, you attack me, your energy drops, your arms gas, and now I'm going to use some techniques that put you off your game. And I saw that in the 3rd and 4th rounds, Topuria was still not backing, like, he wasn't doing anything remotely close to like an Izzy or a Max. He was not willing to change his game mid-fight. Like, when he started losing, he kind of, like, his fighting pattern and his fighting style pretty much stayed the same, which is something kind of scary, is because, like, let's say in rounds 1 and 2, he has high energy and he has the power. His fighting style is the same, and he's beating the crap out of Justin. And then round 3 and 4, the style stays the same, but now he's slower, he's more tired, and now the muscle 2 fibers advantage kick in, the size and toughness advantage kick in, and now Justin is using jabs, uppercuts, and it feels like Justin was menacing him not with combinations, but with single shots, if I remember correctly. And Ilya's ability to deliver devastating combos was severely compromised. Like, the more of those shots that got in, the more his combos gave out. And that kind of reminds me of Max versus Nate Diaz. But Nate Diaz came back with a lot of combos. But ultimately, the reason why he was getting his eyes messed up was something that Ilya's team did not foresee and did not adapt to. Because I feel like if Ilya was taking the damage in another way, and there is in the Fight Lab MMA, they broke it down what was happening there. where every time Justin went for a collar tie, Ilya dipped down. As he dipped down, he'd take the uppercut to the eyes, the orbital bones shattered. So I think this also spins back to that psychological battle, is that Ilya was not telling himself this was going to be a hard fight. Whereas Justin told himself this was going to be the hardest worth it. Like, this was the most important fight of his life. There was no way Justin would ever think this was going to be easy against a double champ. Ilya came into this fight thinking it was going to be easy, and when he ran into adversity, I think it demoralized him greatly. And not only so, he was physically and mentally exhausted in round 3 and 4, and he was extremely hurt. Whereas if you're Justin, you survived rounds 1, round 2, you're not going to give up. You're like, okay, you're gonna lie to yourself. He's tired, we can do this. In round 3 and 4, you're putting damage. You can see the damage on your opponent's face, and you can see that, wow, look at Justin's face. There's like almost no damage, and you see the damage on Ilya's face. That would make Justin and his coach really, really excited, like more amped up, high morale. And I think that's something that Trevor Whitman does really well. Like, I noticed Trevor Whitman is one of those coaches like Craig Jackson or John Jones. He actually gives good advice. Like, actually, he doesn't just say bullshit, doesn't keep silent. He actually is observing the fight, and he's adapting the strategy real time. And when the fighter is getting fatigued, he's like injecting that spirit, like that morale, like we're gonna win this, we're gonna get this. And I think if I was to look back at this, Ilya Topuria, I hope Ilya Topuria and Gaethje have a rematch. I think Ilya could totally beat Gaethje, right? It was an upset. Gaethje actually, he shouldn't and wouldn't have won if Ilya played the perfect game. But Ilya actually played an almost perfect game. But when his perfect game did not finish the fight, he kind of didn't have another game plan to move on in this situation. I think he was genuinely shocked. Like, it's like going all in. It's like going all in on a strategy, and then you're just like, what if you didn't practice and train? And you just all in, and you're like a super specialist in this certain strategy. So in this kind of a little bit one-trick pony-ish in this situation. Because I don't actually believe that Ilya... I think Ilya should change the psychological conditioning to treat his opponents as dangerous. And he should think about it. It's like, because I'm not sure if Ilya is even aware of his weaknesses, because I think Ilya's confidence in his strengths might blind him to the existence of his weaknesses, whereas his opponents are thinking about how can we exploit your weaknesses. By not even recognizing you have weaknesses, it's hard to, like, let's say they know your weakness, so they know how to counter your strength and use your weakness. If you don't even know your weakness, and you don't even know how they're going to counter that, how can you counter the counter? In this case, I feel like their team didn't think of that as that important to counter the counter. They thought they just could impose their own will and turn this into a repetition of what worked in the past. And I think what's really amazing for us fans, we can see that there's a lot of every fighter is a different puzzle to solve. So if you use a technique that was undefeated and beat a bunch of fighters, it doesn't mean that it's going to continue to work. So you should continually evolve, and what you did in the past should not limit you, because we live in the day of AI and there's so many good UFC analysts. You could have any fighter, basically every fighter probably could be analyzed, and I think any fighter can defeat any fighter almost, because the analysis tools are so good now. All the footage is there, it's all being recorded. So you should try to come in with surprises for your opponents. And I think I would want to see Ilya Topuria having the ability to fight moving backwards. Like, he has his fight style is super good. but it would be good for him to have different styles. Like, what if this style doesn't work? Like, for example, if I can't knock you out on the rounds 1 and 2, how can you turn into a counter fighter? Can you turn into a different... Hi, 你在拍一个视频。Hi.
OK。
我在拍一个视频，快。
拍什么视频？
我在 sharing my analysis of the UFC fight. I think in this case also Topuria should have, yes, his striking was working really, really well, and he transitioned to grappling mid-fight to kind of maybe style on his opponent. Probably not the best idea. So it seems like actually his... I think I want to see him do more striking styles, right? And also coaching-wise, I feel like he should find a coach that he really respects and trusts, who could actually kind of match a Trevor Whitman type of fighter. Like, he is an excellent fighter. His coaches' teams are probably really good, but I think to evolve to the next level, he needs to bring in someone who's going to expose Ilya's weaknesses and help him adapt to these new threats, right? He should also be aware that as the champion, double champ, he has a target on his back. There's so many people studying him as Ilya, and he shouldn't let the fear paralyze him, because I mean, psychologically he's great, fitness, training, and everything like that, but I think that a little dose of fear would help both Topuria and Pereira. Like, not too much fear, but some fear, just to get really train harder. And I do want to see that. One of the things that made Alex Pereira and Topuria so exciting is they have a similarity where they're linearly stalking their opponents going forward. They don't waste too much movement. They don't waste a lot of movement. And I think that they should try some of the other kind of movement patterns, because they're becoming a little bit predictable, because as they've fought more fights and have had more successes with a certain movement pattern, it'd probably be a good idea to mix it up and change their strategy. But I'm not sure, because I don't know how feasible that is, but it might be good for them to try different styles just to confuse and trick, because it's like Dominic Cruz. Like, how did Dominic Cruz get taken out by Team Alpha Male, right? Over the years, they've collecting so much data on your stance, on your ability, so kind of having different stances and surprise people. Like, I think on some level you can say that Topuria and Pereira kind of fought the way that they've fought in the past, and it was somewhat expected, and so that all the hard work and all the training and all the analysis and strategy that the opponents made, like Trevor Whitman and whatnot, was actually valid. So what would be really good is how you fought in the previous fight and then how you fight in the next fight do not match each other, so that your opponents don't know what kind of fighter you're going to be like. Because if they know what kind of fighter you're going to be like, then you're kind of banking on just being faster, stronger. Because if they know, they're not surprised. So it would be cool to bring surprises, and that's something that I think John Jones did really well. Is if you look at John Jones, he had a lot of surprising fights. Like, how he fought a lot of fighters was quite different. Because we do see Alex Pereira has never really left the kickboxing style. We see that Topuria has never really left his boxing, dipping, pulling, counters, combo style. Like, they don't really, like, stylistically, they're mappable in a very narrow range, and that makes them all the more easier to counter, which I think is really exciting, because I don't think we've seen the best Topuria and we haven't seen the best Pereira. They were able to spam their old strategy that so many times because it worked over and over again. But now that they've been a puzzle that's been figured out, they can go take time and say, re-embrace the mindset of a student again, and then say, hey, how can we evolve and turn into that complete fighter? Because both of them don't feel like complete fighters yet. They're great fighters, but they're not the complete thing yet, which I think is really exciting. That means Topuria could be 3 times better. Pereira could probably be like 3 times better, if not more. Like, imagine if he could grapple like John Jones. What would happen? Like, actually, Pereira is such a good striker that there's some reason to believe, like, what if these guys just trained some grappling? But there are some people who believe it's just too late, so why even bother, right? So, feel free to comment how you feel. I did a really informal video of just sharing how I felt about yesterday's fight. And God bless. Today is 2006, June 16th, I believe, in China.